Kunja Bihari. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse 22. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janaballabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janaballabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnu Pada Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Stotara Sata Sri Srimad Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prince Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Mathura Dham Ki Jai Navadev Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse 22. Sataya sadayas yuktas tasya radhanamihate labate cha tatakamam mayaiva vihitanitan sataya shradaya yukta shradaya chitumihate labate cha tatakamam mayam vitam mayaiva vihitanitan Sataya Shradaya Yuktas Tasya Radhanamihate Labate Chatatakaman Mayaiva Vihitanitan Sataya Shradaya Yuktas Tasya Radhanam Ihate Labate Chatatakaman Mayaiva Vihitanitan Sahi Taya with that, Shraddhaya with faith, Yukta endowed, Tasya his, Aradhanam worship, Ihate seeks, Labhate obtains, Cha and, Tata from which, Kaman desires, Maya, by me alone, Vihitan, regulated, he, for, tan, those. Translation and purport was Srila Prabhupada. Endowed with such a faith, he seeks favors of a particular demigod and obtains his desires. But in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. Purport. The demigod cannot award benediction to the devotees without the permission of the Supreme Lord. The living entity may forget that everything is the propriety of the Supreme Lord, but the demigods do not forget. So the worship of demigods and achievement of desired results are not due to the demigod, but to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by arrangement. The less intelligent living entity does not know this, and therefore he foolishly goes to the demigods for some benefit. But the pure devotee, when in need of something, prays only to the Supreme Lord. Asking for material benefits, however, is not a sign of a pure devotee. A living entity goes to the demigods usually because he is mad to fulfill his lust. This happens when something undue is desired by the living entity, and the Lord himself does not fulfill the desire. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita it is said that one who worships the Supreme Lord and at the same time desires material enjoyment is contradictory in his desires. Devotional service of the Supreme Lord and worship of a demigod cannot be on the same platform because worship of a demigod is material and devotional service to the Supreme Lord is completely spiritual. For the living entity who desires to return to Godhead, material desires are impediments. A pure devotee of the Lord therefore is therefore not awarded the material benefit desired by less intelligent living entities who prefer to worship demigods in the material world rather than engage in devotional service of the Supreme Lord. Sataya Sradaya Yuktas Tasya Radhanam Hiyate Labate Chatata Kamam Mayaiva Vihitanitan. This is an interesting verse and very often quoted by Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada made the comment, he defined who is a rascal. He said a rascal is someone who tries to make the material world, which by definition is asukam, or full of misery, into sukam, or into a joyful place. But in fact, it cannot be done. No matter how many material facilities you can acquire, no matter how many machines you can invent, how much control you can exercise over material nature, ultimately everything will turn out miserably for the endeavor. You cannot make this place a happy place any more than a person in prison can make a prison a happy place. Yes, he can become an A-class prisoner, make it a very nice cell, daily newspaper, he may order his own food or even cook his own food in the prison. But the fact is, as long as you're in prison, you cannot walk out of those gates. You're restricted. You cannot participate in the larger society. In the same way, our larger society is the society with God. That's where we come from. The living in a material world, it is living in a prison house. It is called karagara, or the place of restriction. And it is created by Krishna for those living entities who have no propensity to follow his order, who want to be independent. Now people may ask, why do we want to act independently if God is so good, if God is so attractive, if Krishna is so beautiful, so welcoming? then why don't we give up our independent spirit and surrender to Krishna? But we don't do it. We don't do it because we have a big, strong streak of independence in us, because that independence is also there in the Supreme. And because we are part and parcel of the Supreme, we have all these qualities in minute form. And one of those qualities is independence and stubbornness. There is a joke Prabhupada told of these two friends. They were walking along the banks of the Ganges, and they were discussing some event that took place some time before. And the argument was whether some person had cut a cloth using the scissors or using a knife. So the first person says, no, he used the scissors because with the scissors you can cut and tear, and that's the proper way to cut cloth. And the first person, no, he said, it's better to use a knife. I saw it with my own eyes. No, you didn't see it. It was scissors. No, it was a knife. No, it was the scissors. So they were arguing backwards and forwards, and eventually they came to blows. They began to fight physically over such a small thing. So they were beating each other, shouting, knife, scissors, knife, scissors, and the person who was advocating the use of a knife, he got the person who was advocating the scissors, and he grabbed him around the throat and he pushed him into the water of the Ganges. And in effect, he was drowning him. And just before the drowned man died, his hand came out of the water. And it went like this, scissors. So he would rather die than change his mind. This is our stubbornness. This is how stubborn we are. Because independence is part of our life, is who we are. Because the reason that independence is who we are is because this independence is meant to be used to please God, to love God. I have to choose in my own independent way to serve Krishna. I cannot expect Krishna to be my servant. We do not go to the temple or to the church or to the mosque with a list of demands that God, give me this, give me that, give me the other. Especially in India, you see this propensity of going to the temple for asking for something for my own pleasure. Selfishness is very, very pronounced. And especially people, they worship all kinds of demigods. For every particular desire that you have, there is an Indian process to get it on the material platform. For example, if you want good health, then you worship the sun god. Even I myself, if you see my rings, this ring here, this ruby, is meant to absorb the rays of the sun through the ruby into my skin, and it is meant for health. It is meant for digestion, because the sun god is in charge of the digestive fire of the stomach. So for our material needs, we worship so many demigods. But here Krishna says, it doesn't matter. You may worship as many demigods as you want, but unless I give permission, unless Krishna gives permission, the demigod cannot satisfy your desire. That's the system. So the question arises, why do people worship the demigods instead of worshiping Krishna? And that because Krishna, he doesn't satisfy your desire if that causes you to come back to Krishna again and again to ask for the same thing. So if I'm in material trouble, I am in want, I am poor, or I am sick, or I am hungry, and I need some material benefit, I pray to Krishna and I get it. When I've used up that benediction, again I will be needing food, again I will be needing mental peace, again I will go and pray. So this will create a cycle where I will remain in a material world, which is dukhalayam, which is a miserable place, ashashvatam, a temporary place. I will remain in a material world, and make Krishna my order supplier for my material things. Well, that's not what we are created for. We are not created to be independent. We require to be connected with Krishna. This is our eternal Jiva Bhuta Mameva Amsa Jiva Loke, Krishna says, that the Jiva Loke, the living entities in this universe, Mama Eva Amsa. They are my parts. Bhuta Sanatana. They are eternal, living beings. But because we identify with the material world and we want to live independently of Krishna, then we lose our spiritual body. It's just like a spark of a fire. If the spark is near the flame, then it brights, it explodes with light. But that brightness of the spark is depending upon the fire. If the spark falls away from the fire, then it becomes covered in ash, and its natural luminance, its natural brightness becomes covered over. So in the same way, when we want to use Krishna for our own independent program, our own independent activities, then we can only do that in the material world. In the spiritual world, everyone is conscious that God is the supreme entity. Ishvara Parama Krishna is the supreme controller. Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha, his body is eternal, and we can live with him eternally on the condition that we serve him, that we become his servant. And on the material platform, the tendency is to acquire. That if you meet somebody better than you, you want to take something from him. If he has more money than you want some of his money. If he's more knowledgeable, you want some of his knowledge. Whatever quality a person has that you lack, you aspire to obtain it from him. This is the material consciousness. Whereas the spiritual consciousness is that you give to Krishna, and automatically by giving to Krishna, you get the benefit. Just like when I get some food, I put it in my stomach. By the simple process of putting food in the stomach, I supply energy to my entire body. Why? Because the entire body is eternally connected to the stomach. Body and stomach go together. So similarly, we go together with Krishna, and when we serve Krishna, because we are connected eternally with Krishna, we feel pleasure. And when we serve Krishna, and one of the results of serving Krishna is that you get to know him more and more. And the more you get to know Krishna, that is called Krishna Katha, or how Krishna does things, the more you understand how Krishna is involved in your life, the more you understand how Krishna is involved in the creation, then the more you can be happy in his service. What are we looking for? We're looking for eternal life. We're looking for knowledge, and we're looking for happiness. These are the three things: Sat, Chit, Ananda. Why are we looking for these things? Because we already have them. We just forgot them. They're there. That's why they're in our subconscious. We are aspired after something because we know that something is there. The prisoner in a prison, he aspires to be free from the prison because he knows that it is a society at large. So when we become educated in Krishna consciousness, then we can understand that there is a Krishna conscious society at large, which is different from the material society in that it is eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. And if we have this mentality to go towards that understanding, towards that reality, if we develop or if we engage in activities to reawaken and develop our eternal reality in relationship with God, that then Krishna will supply us everything we need. He says in the Gita, Ananyas chintayanto mam. There's a condition there. Anya means something else. And ananya means nothing else. So Ananyas, without any other idea, Chintayantamam, he who thinks of me without any other idea. Ye jana paryupasate, that person who is dedicated, who is religious, who is on the path of knowledge. Tesham nitya biyuktanam yogaksheman vahami aham. I will give him yogaksheman, everything he needs. And nitya abhiyuktanam, I will keep him engaged and I will utilize his qualities to remain Krishna conscious. And the most important quality that we all have to remain Krishna conscious is the possibility of hearing about Krishna. And hearing about Krishna begins with chanting. Cheto Darpana Marjanam. The process of chanting is that we become connected with Krishna through his holy name. It is said in the Vedas that Krishna's name is Chintamani. Namas Chintamani Krishna Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. It is the Vigraha, or the form, the name of Krishna is the form of Chaitanya, of eternal consciousness. So when we connect with the eternal consciousness of Krishna, we forget our temporary material activities. It's just like if I am dreaming, deep sleep, and I am dreaming, and suddenly I get woken up. Either there is a telephone rings, or doorbell, or somebody calls out. You wake up, immediately all the activities in your dream, they become forgotten. It's finished. And the new activities of the reality of waking up take place. So sometimes the process between dreaming and waking is a little slow. You wake up, but you're still befuddled. You're still, for example, if you had a nightmare or a disturbing dream, you may wake up covered in sweat, shaking in fear because of what you were thinking you were going through in your dream. So it takes a little time to find the balance, to move away from the nightmare to the reality of your day-to-day life. It takes time for some people. It's a fact. Not so for everybody. So in the same way, to get away from the bad dream of material existence takes time before we can adjust to our spiritual existence. And that is called Cheto Darpana, or cleaning the heart, cleaning the mirror of the heart. Like if you look in a mirror, you see yourself. You see your eyes, your ears, your nose, your mouth. Mirror reflects you. But if the mirror is dirty or clouded, sometimes we go to, especially in the third world, you go to the bathroom, and some restaurants or in some cafes or in some gas station, and the place hasn't been cleaned. And you see the mirror is dirty, full of dust and dry dust and dirt, remnants of soap and whatever people were doing in that bathroom. So the mirror isn't very clean. You don't see your face very clearly because the mirror is not shining. It is contaminated. So when our heart is contaminated, when it is not cleansed of our sinful activities, we are not able to see beyond our selfishness, our reluctance to serve others, our interest in ourselves first, our egotism, our greed. There are 6 enemies we all have: Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, and Matsarya. Kama is lust. Everyone is lusty. Even we call it love. Oh, I fell in love with this beautiful woman. I fell in love with this wonderful man. In the material world, it's not love, it's lust. You fall in love with someone which meets your criteria for pleasure. Therefore, you love someone. You're not loving the someone, you're loving what that person has to give you pleasure. You're using that person, so it's called lust. Whereas in the spiritual world, when your connection with Krishna begins to awaken, then the sweetness of Krishna, the sweetness of his personality His beauty, His knowledge, His dealing becomes so overwhelmingly wonderful. You meet such a treasure, such a person who can satisfy whatever you desire unlimitedly, whose wonderful qualities don't come to an end. They keep you busy more and more and more. Whereas in the material world, when you get engaged in a relationship, the more you find out about the other person, then sometimes the less the relationship becomes concretized. Because we see through. If you actually intelligent, you can see through the material bullshit. Like it is now. We are living in a world full of lies, full of fake news, full of deceit, because no one is honest. No one is willing to admit that nothing is mine. I am born with nothing. I created nothing. I have no right to claim proprietorship. My brother, whether he's an animal or a human being, he has the right, she has the right to live. I do not have the right to impose myself upon other people. I don't have the right to hanker after somebody else's property. Now, when you come to this point, when these qualities begin to develop, and you trust that person with these qualities, because if you see someone who's generous, kind, beautiful, caring about you, then you tend to take a step deeper in the relationship. You open your heart, and when you open your heart, there is no possibility of any disappointment if it is open to Krishna. But if you open your heart to something else, something independent of Krishna, which is illusion, it's not the truth. Therefore, it will come to an end. It will come to a bad end. So we pray to Krishna. Krishna says, I will become manifested to you in proportion to your ananyas chintayanta, to your unalloyed consciousness towards me. And that is done by chanting. Cheto darpana marjanam, cleaning the mirror of the heart. When you clean the mirror of the heart, what happens is, bhava, cheto darpana marjanam, bhava nivar agni nirvapanam, bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam. That by chanting, not only how is the heart cleansed, it is cleansed by the fire of knowledge, by the fire of devotion, by the fire of selflessness. When you are actually able to manifest some selflessness, you feel pleasure. Just like if somebody begs you in the street and you give him a couple of euros or you give him a little gift, you feel better because you've helped somebody. Why is it that you feel better? Because we are created by Krishna to feel better when we become altruistic, when we give. And why do we give? Because we are servant. Servant means he gives service, and he accepts in return whatever the master decrees for him. But when the master is Krishna, then we know that he will not exploit us. Whereas when the master is someone in the material world, be sure you will be exploited. So you cannot change the criminal nature of the material world, of the human beings. You cannot change their criminal self-interested nature unless Krishna is there. Krishna is the only one who can make it all bright. And therefore, in the Upanishad, it is said that Isha avashyam idam sarvam. Everything belongs to God. Yat kincha. Whatever little thing is there, everything is connected with God. The problem is not, can you show me God? No. The problem is, how is it that you're so blind you cannot see God? When one is Krishna conscious, he sees God everywhere, in every place, at every time. And Krishna has this wonderful quality that when you connect with him in the heart, he reciprocates with you in a magical way. You cannot explain it in words. Therefore, we say to people, Never mind whether you agree with the philosophy or don't agree. Just chant Hare Krishna for a few weeks and see how that will make you feel happy. And if it makes you feel happy, then what is the need of any other designation of Christianity or Islam, Judaism, Buddhism? It all means nothing if it doesn't give you happiness. So, we want happiness and we can get it by serving Krishna. Cheto Darpanam Ajaram. Thank you for participating. I see that our friend Atmavidyada is back online. Thank you, Hare Krishna. I want to apologize for the last few weeks. The class was not being given because I was traveling in India, but now hopefully we will get back to schedule Wednesdays and Fridays. Thank you very much. Any comment, please leave your comment and I will answer. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.